Hundreds of you have reached out to the I-Team about your skyrocketing electric costs.
I'm a little disgusted at the rate increase. Something has to be done.
We're going in-depth on causes and solutions.
If we do nothing, this will get worse for people in Connecticut.
We're going to need a lot more energy, and we better get started.
You're watching an Eyewitness News special presentation, Rising Rates.
Thanks for joining us. I'm consumer investigative reporter Cassidy Williams. The average monthly electric bill in Connecticut is $212, according to MarketWatch. That's the second highest in the country. Only Hawaii is more expensive. But why is it so high? Over the next half hour, we are going to examine why certain charges on your bill have jumped in the last year, and later we'll find out ways you can save. But first, let's take a look at an Eversource bill, because around 78% of people in Connecticut are Eversource customers. It's broken up into 4 different parts. The supply charge is what you pay for the actual electricity you use. That price changes every 6 months and depends on a lot of factors outside of Connecticut control, like international wars and supply chains. But tonight we are focusing on things that are controlled here in Connecticut, including what almost every email asked us to investigate: the public benefits charge. Give people in Connecticut a platform to talk about their electric bill.
Well, it's too expensive.
And they'll have a lot to say.
The bill is high.
I really didn't use any more power than I did the month before, and it was more than doubled.
It's normal for electric bills to go up in July as people use more electricity to run air conditioners. But this July, there was something else.
Oh, it was shocking.
The amount you are charged per kilowatt hour for the public benefits portion of your bill went up 490%. That means for the average customer, the public benefits charge went from $12 a month to $59 a month. Eversource's Connecticut president Steve Sullivan explains.
All we're doing in that bill portion is exactly recovering our costs.
Legislators have put programs in place that require Eversource and United Illuminating to spend money. By law, customers have to pay the utilities back for those programs through the public benefits charge. But Eversource says it has been underpaid for years. One reason is because of what happened during the pandemic, when lawmakers told Eversource it could not shut off a customer's power. Over 4 years, past due balances nearly tripled from $101 million to $274 million.
And they just built up and built up and built up until we finally forced the issue and said, you have to pay these off.
The I-Team wanted to know if other states make customers pay for other people's bills, so we reached out to the regulatory agencies for electricity in all 50 states. Of the 22 that responded by deadline, a majority have something similar to Connecticut, but 8 do not. In Kansas, those type of fees have been ruled unjust and discriminatory. In West Virginia, instead of asking other customers to pick up the tab, a tax credit is given to utilities. And in Florida, social service agencies and nonprofits pay for financial assistance programs.
Why I need to, as a taxpayer, pay that?
And while the pandemic back pay is what people wanted to talk about when they stepped up to our mic,
I resent it.
unpaid bills only account for around 20% of the rate increase. Eversource says almost 70% of the public benefits increase is to pay for a state contract to keep the Millstone nuclear power plant open. In 2019, state Republicans led an effort to purchase power from the plant. State Senator Ryan Fazio is the ranking Republican on the Energy Committee and supports the Millstone decision.
Nuclear plants like Millstone, which are zero carbon reliable and the lowest cost form of zero carbon energy around, have to stay online as we see rising electricity demand.
Representative Jonathan Steinberg, a Democrat, is the House co-chair of the Energy Committee. Steinberg also supports the Millstone deal.
If we had let Millstone shut down, we'd be in much worse shape today.
The current public benefits increase goes through April 2025, and if all state programs stay as is, Sullivan predicts the charge on your bill will decrease.
Prior to July 1st, the rate was artificially low, but because we're paying off that past balance in 10 months, right now it is actually artificially high, and it's actually going to fall somewhere pretty close to the middle.
But that could all change depending on what happens this legislative session.
State Republicans have proposed moving many of the programs currently paid for through the public benefits charge into the regular budget process.
We shouldn't be raising people's electricity costs when they're already so high in the state in order to fund these government programs.
Steinberg does not support that idea.
You can decide where you'd rather pay for it, but if you believe it's something worth doing, does that really matter more?
So while it's often said you should turn off your lights to lower your electric bill, what you end up paying each month will also depend on who is controlling the lights in Hartford.
There was another increase in the public benefits charge this September, around $3 a month for the average customer to pay for an electric vehicle charger rebate program. If you install an EV charger in your home, Eversource or United Illuminating will pay you back the cost up to $1,000. And that money comes from all ratepayers, no matter where you live or what car you drive. And some towns are benefiting more than others.
If you're an Eversource customer, the public benefits charge you pay on your bill helped pay for this EV charger in George D'Addario's Bristol home.
I had a thing in the mail from Eversource talking about the program and how, we'll give you the charger, we'll pay for the installation, the whole thing will end up being free.
D'Addario sent his receipts to Eversource, around $900 for the charger and electrical work, and around 4.5 months later, he got the full $900 back.
Seemed like a win-win, so I went ahead with it.
State regulators approved a rate hike in August to pay for $80 million worth of these EV charger rebates. So starting in September, electric bills went up around $3 a month on average to fund the program. In addition to residential rebates like D'Addario's, there were also larger rebates for chargers in public places. The state requires Eversource and UI to run this rebate program as part of its push to expand the use of EVs. In 2020, Connecticut signed an agreement with several other states committing to putting between 125,000 and 150,000 EVs on the road by 2025. The idea is that everyone will benefit if more EVs means less pollution in the air.
The idea of the program is build it and they will come. We want to get those chargers out there in the world.
So how many chargers are out there? Data submitted by UI and Eversource to the state shows they have given residential rebates to more than 6,500 people between the start of the program in 2022 and August of this year. The I-Team analyzed the data and found those living in the suburbs are benefiting more than people in cities.
In Avon, there have been 117 EV charger rebate participants. In Hartford, there have only been 24 EV charger rebate participants. Now, let's take a look at those numbers factoring in population.
In Avon, there was one EV charger rebate given for every 161 people. In Hartford, there are almost 5,000 people for every one rebate. In fact, if you add up the rebates given in New Haven, Hartford, and Waterbury, it's still less than the total rebates in Avon, even though those three cities have more than 19 times as many people as Avon.
What do you think those numbers say about the current status of the program?
Well, again, in the early stages, the early adopters are typically people who have the means to take advantage of the program.
Representative Jonathan Steinberg says he can understand the argument for moving funding for the rebates out of people's electric bills, but says he supports leaving the program where it is because he believes all ratepayers will benefit eventually.
For the penetration in the community to be significant enough to justify the charging is something we're still waiting to happen.
State Senator Ryan Fazio disagrees.
I think we should make it easy and affordable to buy EVs in Connecticut, but forcing someone to pay a higher electric bill for a private benefit for a private citizen who's probably also higher income is just not fair.
Back in Bristol, D'Addario says even though he took part in the program, he's actually not sure it was worth it. He's done the math and says right now, with the cost of electricity, it's more expensive for him to charge up his hybrid RAV4 than it is to fill up at the pump.
It defeats the whole purpose of the program in my eyes.
D'Addario says he doesn't often use the charger, and it reminds him of what parents always tell you about things that are free.
Your parents are right. You don't get something for nothing.
The current rate hike to pay for the EV rebate program is expected to last through April. State lawmakers have their own perspective on these rate hikes and how they may be connected to the billions of dollars Eversource lost when investing in offshore wind. We look into that part of the story after the break. Welcome back to Rising Rates, an I-Team investigation into electric bills in Connecticut. If you add up the numbers in Eversource's quarterly reports, Eversource lost billions of dollars in offshore wind projects over the last few years. Some politicians are claiming Eversource is raising your public benefits charge because the company needs cash. Eversource says that's not true. So what is going on? The I-Team wanted to find out.
The turns of these 12 turbines power 70,000 Long Island homes. It's clean, renewable energy, coming at a high cost for Eversource. Eversource's investment in this and other offshore wind projects led to losses of approximately $2.4 billion. Eversource has since sold all of its interests, exiting the offshore wind business completely. House co-chair of the Energy Committee, State Representative Jonathan Steinberg, believes that is part of the reason electric bills skyrocketed in July.
It didn't have to happen that way. I think it's a reflection of the fact that utilities are hurting right now. They made some really bad investments like in offshore wind.
Eversource's Connecticut president Steve Sullivan says there's no truth to Steinberg's claims.
There are no charges in there, charges in the public benefits that have anything to do with the offshore wind business.
Starting July 1st, the public benefits charge on Eversource bills went up 490% per kilowatt hour. The rate hike was approved by the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, or PURA, by a vote of 2-1. The one state regulator who voted against it argued the money could have been paid back over 2 to 3 years instead of 10 months. She wrote in her dissenting opinion that Eversource's cash flow issues due to its offshore wind business could be the real reason Eversource was pushing to get its money back within a year. We asked Sullivan directly why Eversource wasn't willing to wait.
They created the problem by pushing the costs off for 2 to 4 years and then said, gee, why can't we stretch this out over a longer period of time? So again, you would just be compounding the problem. None of the public benefits programs or policies have gone away. So these costs are going to continue this year and next year. And if you don't pay off that past due balance, you just continue to pancake the costs and create additional interest costs.
But with $2.4 billion lost at sea, is it possible customers could be impacted in other ways? Eversource's offshore wind team no longer exists, so we interviewed other experts in the field, including Chris Olith. She's the executive director of the Special Initiative on Offshore Wind, an independent organization that advocates for offshore wind construction.
I think it was a blip in the development cycle and something we hope Eversource will continue to do in the future. But the projects are continuing as planned.
It's true that projects are moving forward without Eversource, and Olith explains building wind turbines is expensive. Add in the unexpected increase in the cost of raw materials and rising interest rates, Eversource wasn't the only company to lose money.
These economic challenges really found offshore wind on hard times the past few years.
If you had perfect foresight, they probably wouldn't have entered into those agreements, but they don't have that luxury.
Richard Sweeney is an associate professor of environmental economics at Boston College. He believes with a loss that large, ratepayers will end up paying somehow.
That's just the reality of having a regulated utility. If you make a bad investment, it's actually the ratepayers who are on the hook.
Sullivan would disagree, explaining that the offshore wind business has completely separate accounting books than the company that runs your electricity.
There's absolutely no crossover between the offshore wind business and the public benefits piece.
And keeping it that way is PURA's job. It's up to the regulators to take a close look at all rate requests in the future to see where your money is going and if it's being thrown to the wind.
Not everyone in the state is an Eversource or United Illuminating customer. There are 7 towns in Connecticut that have what's called Municipal Power, and it's consistently cheaper than Eversource or UI. So how do these towns do it? We have that part of the story when we come back. So far in this I-Team presentation of rising rates, we've talked a lot about the public benefits charge. But if you live in one of these 7 places, you don't pay that charge at all. That's because these towns and cities have municipal power, which is locally controlled. We sat down with the CEO of the company that runs the power for 6 out of 7 of these places to find out if it's possible for other towns to follow suit.
The beauty of Norwich is one of the reasons Andrew Pig moved here and opened a business downtown. And when he received his first electric bill, he found a new reason to love the city.
We were actually kind of pleasantly surprised because our power bills was substantially less.
That's because if you live in Norwich, your electricity comes from Norwich Public Utilities. It's one of 6 local power companies that make up CMEC, the Connecticut Municipal Electric Energy Cooperative. Dave Meisinger is the CEO. He explains how the average electric bill within CMEC compares to an Eversource or United Illuminating bill.
In the last 5-6 years, we've been roughly 20 to 40% less, and there's a lot of reasons for that.
One of the reasons is many of the state rules and regulations that apply to Eversource and UI do not apply to CMEC. Meisinger says the supply rate is often also cheaper because CMEC's members have more freedom over how to purchase power.
Eversource and UI are required to procure the wholesale energy in a very specific way, and they're doing it over a relatively short period of time. Whereas at CMEC, we're not mandated by anyone other than ourselves.
Meisinger says it also matters who the companies answer to. Both Eversource and UI are investor-owned, meaning they ultimately have to answer to Wall Street.
Our shareholders are our customers. I mean, it's the municipality and the people that live there.
Norwich Public Utilities has been around for more than 100 years. If a new town or city in Connecticut wanted to switch to municipal power, Meisinger says it's technically possible, but it's often too expensive because the investor-owned utility will want to be paid.
It will almost absolutely lead to litigation in terms of over the right to do it, but more so at what cost, what just compensation needs to be paid to the utility.
For PIG, the lower utility bills have helped the Norwich Camera Company thrive.
We have been able to completely stay in the black the entire time, which is very rare for a small business startup.
So fixing up old cameras is keeping the lights on, and it doesn't hurt that the lights cost less to begin with.
Now, we've talked a lot over this series about why electricity costs what it does in the state. There's a lot you can't control, but there are things you can do to save money. We have those tips after this. Electricity is expensive in Connecticut. We all know that, but there are ways to make your home more energy efficient to lower your monthly bill. It's been 2 years since President Biden signed the Inflation Reduction Act, promising billions of dollars to help homeowners do just that. But that money is still not available in Connecticut. Officials tell us that money is coming. You just have to wait a little longer.
We're, close to the finish line in terms of working through these details.
Deep Commissioner Katie Dykes says the federal funds on their way to Connecticut have the potential to make a big impact.
That helps you as the homeowner to lower your energy costs, but it helps everyone, all of the ratepayers in Connecticut, every time a resident or a business takes action on efficiency.
Through the Inflation Reduction Act, Connecticut is eligible to receive $49 million federal dollars to help people weatherize their homes, things like adding insulation or upgrading windows. The state is eligible for another $49 million to help people buy energy-efficient appliances. Homeowners in 8 states, including New York and Rhode Island, can already apply for the rebates. But Connecticut is still waiting for the Department of Energy to approve its application. Dykes expects the funding to be available sometime next summer. But she says that doesn't mean you should wait to start looking into energy efficiency.
These federal funds are on top of the existing funding that we have in the state's energy efficiency programs.
Dykes encourages people to use the Energize CT homepage to sign up for a free energy audit and see what state funding may be available. The Energize CT website currently lists 53 different rebates and incentives available right now. Just one example, UI and Eversource customers can get up to $650 for a qualifying heat pump water heater. It's estimated that would then save you between $3,000 and $4,000 over its lifetime.
Well, getting started with your audit helps you know what kinds of measures will make the most sense for you, and then it can help you navigate through the different incentives that are going to be available.
Dykes says it's good to familiarize yourself with the Energize CT website now because the current plan is to have the federal funding be available through that same system. Now, we've only scratched the surface over the last half hour on what goes into Connecticut's electric prices. The electric industry is complicated, and the more you know, the more you can advocate for yourself and for the changes you'd like to see. We'll keep following this story, and we ask that you keep sending your story ideas and tips to us. Just go on WFSB.com, click the iTeam tab, and then use the Contact Us tool. Thank you for watching. For the iTeam, Cassidy Williams, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.